My name is Patrick Leach. One of my favourite pastimes is walking in the countryside, and this week I'm in the Lake District.
I'm here on holiday, no stress to think about, just walk around and relax and enjoy myself. No job to worry about, no girls to get hurt about, just let the mountains and lakes drag my thoughts away.
The town of Windermere grew around the railway station, which is about 1.5 miles from the lake. Over the years, it has become merged with the older lakeside town of Bowness, though the two have quite separate centres. Bowness-on-Windermere is a sprawling tourist town about halfway along the east shore of the lake. It is Cumbria's most popular destination, with the town busy for much of the year. The area behind the church is the oldest part of Bowness, a delightful web of narrow streets known as Loughrigg, which gives an idea of what the town was like before the arrival of the railway. Lake Windermere, at 10.5 miles long, 1 mile wide and 220 feet deep, is the largest natural lake in England and is fed by numerous rivers. Until March 2005, Windermere was the only lake without a speed limit, but a 10-mile-an-hour limit has now been imposed. Steamers and launches operate from Bowness Bay to Waterhead at Ambleside and Lakeside at the southern end.
Such paradise is all I see. This is not a fantasy. I feel so good, wonderfully bright, a feeling that I'll never have till I return.
Well, I've checked into my guest house, freshened up, and I'm ready to go out for a beer now. This guest house is actually really nice. It was recommended to me by a friend from work. He actually stayed here with his wife several times before now, and he gave really good reviews about it. I've also looked online, and TripAdvisor, there's hardly any bad reviews about it. In fact, all the good reviews have given it 5 stars. So I think that says something about it. I'd spotted the Drunken Duck on maps ages ago, and it's one of those places I always wanted to go to. Now I can now say I've been. I was going to have dinner there tonight. The menu looked quite nice, but it was rather expensive. Having been inside there, I did have a drink, but I decided not to eat in the end. It wasn't somewhere that I felt particularly comfortable eating. Nothing wrong with it, don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't for me really, so... But it's a lovely place to have a drink. I mean, this is the Lake District after all. Never mind. I'll move on now and find somewhere else to have my dinner. Well, after deciding not to have a meal in the Drunken Duck tonight, I drove on and went into Hawkshead, and I found a pub there called the Sun Inn. Nice place, fairly quiet in there, but it's Monday night, so I suppose anyway it's going to be fairly quiet tonight. Very basic pub menu. But I thought I'd give it a try, and it was probably half the price of what I would have paid in the Drunken Duck. Started off with a portobello mushroom with a brie wedge on top of it. That was quite nice. The main course, well, I make a lot of curries at home, and they had curries on the menu, and I thought, well, I'd rather not have curry this time. Most of the other choice was beef burger, venison burger, and the special was wild boar burger. So I thought, alright, I'll have a burger then. Now, when they actually brought me the food, it was put in front of me, and instead of being presented on a plate, it was on a sheet of slate. How odd is that? I mean, nothing wrong with that, I suppose, but just a bit unusual. When the girl brought it over to me, I was actually very tempted to say, excuse me, I think this should be on a plate. You're very close. Plate, not slate, plate. But I resisted the temptation. Okay meal, nothing to rave about, but one to cross off the list. Most important thing now is I'm going out for a beer. One of the pubs I've been to tonight, called the Golden Rule. It's a great place, it really is. But it's the best pub in this area, probably the best pub in the Lake District. Food wise, all they'll serve you is crisps and pork pies, but you go in there for beer and chat. And I had a couple of beers in there tonight. I had 2 pints of double hop, which is a Robinson's Brewery beer.
The following morning, I travelled by bus back to Bowness, from where I crossed Lake Windermere by the ferry. As soon as the ferry reached the west shore of the lake, this was where my walk began.
Can't believe it. Absolutely gorgeous again this morning. The last few weeks back home, the weather has been absolutely appalling. Rain, cold, Summer's finally here, it seems, so whilst I'm here in the Lake District, it can be as sunny and dry for as long as it likes. Near Sawrey and Far Sawrey are two neighbouring villages famous for their association with Beatrix Potter, who lived at Hilltop Farm in Near Sawrey. A number of sites in the villages were used in her books, such as The Tale of Tom Kitten, The Fairy Caravan, The Pie in the Patty Pan, and The Tale of Jemima Puddleduck. Far Sawrey has the parish church, a hotel, pub and village shop, which ceased to function as a post office in 2003. From Far Sawrey, I climbed onwards towards Claife Heights. Worth stopping for a rest for a while. Fantastic, look at it. Just trying to work out where I am. According to the map, this is Low Pate Crag. I would imagine it's probably pronounced Low Pate Crag. That's the thing about the Lake District. Whichever direction you look, it is always beautiful scenery, absolutely faultless. Well, this is only my second day and I'm really enjoying my holiday. It's great to get away and forget about things in my everyday life. Hawkshead. That's where I'm heading. Now I'm on High Pate Crag. Sorry, High Pate Crag. Everybody. It's bizarre. Coming from Bowness on the ferry, I couldn't get away from crowds of people. And then walking up from Sorey, up here through the woods up to Clafe Heights, and I've hardly seen a soul. I mean, I'm not complaining, it's lovely. But I really thought I would have seen more people than I have done. See the sunshine in the sky, listen to the birds singing, smell the freshness of the flowers. It's so romantic, it feels so good. See the hills climb high above, see the rivers flowing down. It's so lovely, it reminds me, at this time I will think of you. Hold me tightly, never let go, 'cause I value the love you give. Will you love me always and ever? I'm so lonely, I need to know, 'cause I value your love, value your love, I value your love. My walk for today came to an end as I descended to the village of Hawkshead. Hawkshead is situated just north of Skelwith Water, with many buildings dating from the 17th century. It has a lively community and a high pub-to-population ratio. Hawkshead was originally owned by the monks of Furness Abbey and grew to be an important wool market in medieval times, and later as a market town after the dissolution of the monasteries in 1532. William Wordsworth was educated in its grammar school. When the Lake District National Park formed in 1951, tourism grew in importance, though traditional farming still goes on around the village. Hawkshead has a timeless atmosphere and consists of a character warren of alleys, overhanging gables, and a series of medieval squares. It is eloquently described in William Wordsworth's poem, The Prelude. Much of the land in and around the village is now owned by the National Trust. I hopped on a bus back to my guest house, had a rest and showered and changed. As the evening came, I took a leisurely drive back just over the hill from Hawkshead to arrive in Coniston. At 5 miles long, and with a maximum depth of 184 feet, Coniston Water is the third largest of the lakes. It provided an important fish source for the monks of Furness Abbey, who owned the lake and much of the surrounding land in the 13th and 14th centuries. Coniston was the site of the World Water Speed Record bids of Donald Campbell, which ended in his tragic death on the 4th of January 1967, whilst attempting to reach a speed of 300 miles per hour. Until the copper mines, dating from Jacobean times, were revitalised about 1859, Coniston was a scattered rural community. It was mainly settled around Coniston Hall, a 16th century farmhouse with a display of mighty chimneys built by the Fleming family and now owned by the National Trust. Its best feature is the Old Man of Coniston, rising dramatically behind the houses when seen from the village centre. That's me suitably fed now. I've had my dinner, which I had in the Black Bull in Coniston Village. Now I'll start off with a complaint. Only a minor complaint, but I'll get it out of the way first. The young woman that brought my food to me and cleared my plates after I'd finished, she had a face like a smacked arse. When she cleared my plate away and I said, "Oh, thank you very much," she went, "You're welcome." I felt like telling her, "What do you look like when you're having a bad day?" Anyway, that's a minor complaint. The food was lovely. I had tiger prawns to start. I fancied those because, bearing in mind how hot it's been today, I just fancied something that wasn't going to be too heavy. And they were lovely. Tiger prawns with like a sweet chilli dip and like a savoury rice with it as well. But then for my main, I go the opposite way. I have something very hearty. I had steak. It was a venison steak, which was on their specials board, so I thought, oh, that sounds nice, I'll give it a try. So the steak was on like a bed of mash, green beans, and some of those shavings of parsnip crisps that you seem to get in with a lot of meals now. Very nice. It was a nice pub. Beautiful village, beside Coniston Water. It's absolutely wonderful. I've had a great night. I've got a few more nights left like this yet when I'm here in the Lake District. And better still now, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to go get some beer inside me. I have had 1 pint tonight, just the one. I feel knackered. I feel absolutely knackered. It's been a lovely walk today, don't get me wrong, it's been a fantastic day. I can't have asked for better weather. And I really hope that the weather lasts like this the rest of the week I'm here. But I think maybe the heat has sapped me a bit. I think when it's as hot as it has been today, it does sap my energy more, certainly. And I think the walk up through Clave Heights to Hawkshead was, I don't know, 6, possibly 7 miles. Yeah, and it was tiring, more tiring than I thought. So by the time I got to Hawkshead, I was ready to get the bus back to my guest house, and I quite easily had just gone to bed, but I thought, well, I need to eat. So of course I went back to Coniston and had my dinner, and that was very nice. And it was lovely going to Coniston in the evening, probably the best time, as I said earlier, to see it. A fantastic lake there, probably for me it's probably the nicest lake in the Lake District. But after that, I really could have come straight back to the guest house and gone to bed. But I thought, well, it'd be rude not to have 1 pint tonight, so I did. I've been to the Golden Rule again, and had 1 pint in there, but there was no seats in there, so I was standing by the bar, and I just thought, I need to sit down, but if I had sat down in there, if I could have found a seat, I probably wouldn't have got back up again. So after I've had my pint, I've come back to the guest house now. I'm going to have a bar of chocolate, I need my chocolate fix, and then I think I'm just going to go to bed, knackered. Well, all through the night, I could feel my scalp burning. So today I wasn't taking any chances, hence this. Well, it's another glorious day. I'm so lucky, I can't believe it. Anyway, on with today's walk. Tarn Hows is one of the most visited spots in the Lake District, and in high season can be literally packed with people. It is a beauty spot that must not be missed, yet it is not entirely typical of the local landscape, for the tarn is partly artificial, being 3 tarns joined together in the 19th century, and most of the trees surrounding it are conifers. The attraction is its sheer beauty, surrounded by thick woodland and views towards Wetherlam, the Helvellyn Range and the Langdale Pikes. When Tarn Hows and its setting came up for sale in 1929, they were bought by Beatrix Potter, who sold half containing Tarn Hows to the National Trust and donated the rest of the estate to the trust in her will.
Funny, I was talking before about how wonderful it is coming on this holiday and forgetting about my normal everyday life. Well, I do remember the very first time I came to the Lake District. Years ago, I would have been 21, and at the time, the job I was doing within the county council, it was a job I absolutely hated, and I didn't stop thinking about it wherever I was. I'll talk more about that as I walk on. One of my work colleagues was going on maternity leave, so I was offered the chance to act up into her position for 10 months while she was away. I thought, brilliant. Chance to get a bit of extra money for a while, can't be bad. Little did I know what I was actually getting myself into. The woman I was going to be working with, well, if I was to say she was a cow, it would be an understatement. This lady's name was Ros. Now, her job was basically a glorified filing clerk. She was responsible for the department's files and all the paperwork that had to be filed within the files. Quite an easy job really, not exactly a great deal of responsibility. And my job was to work as her assistant. Now when you actually look at it like that, it should be quite a cushy number. And the job should have been quite an easy one to do. But unfortunately, because of Ros's attitude and just her personality, the job was made 100 times harder than it should have been.
Moving on from the delightful Tarn Hows, my walk took me northwards to the bleaker landscape of Ambleside. The views I got from here could only speak for themselves. Fantastic view, but then where in the Lake District do you not get fantastic views?
I should perhaps explain a little bit about the department I was working in at the time. It was the Administration and Legal Services, and I was working in one particular team headed by my of a boss, in which both Ros and I worked. The team was not the most supportive team I've ever worked for. They weren't the nicest of people, so it wasn't just Ros and my boss. The rest of the team were okay, but generally people were just so impatient. I just remember, if you were trying to do something and you were learning a job, and if I sort of said, how do you do this, people would get really impatient. You know, there was just like, people were just so intolerant and just, I don't know, just generally quite officious. So you didn't feel that there was any sort of, anyone in the department or in that particular team who you could talk to if there were any problems. It was just, you could actually cut the atmosphere with a knife in that team. So within that officious team you had Ros. Now, Ros is what I would call very organised. More organised than anybody I've ever known. And she expected everybody else to be up to her standard. And that's where her impatience came into play. The first day I met her was the first day I started in admin and legal. This was months before I actually started working with her. And she came over to me and she said, there was a sign on the wall, you know. And then she walked away and I thought, what? And apparently I'd used a shredder and I don't know what had happened, but I hadn't done what the sign had said on the wall. Bloody hell, so I got her take the first day I started working there. I think Ros wanted to basically be in charge of everything that she possibly could be in the department. Say she looked after the shredder apparently, she ran the tea club, I think she also ran a pool syndicate as well. But she liked to have her fingers in her pies where possible. So everybody knew Ros. So when I started working with her, I was on my guard, shall we say, because I knew what type of person she was. Now, I would describe her as quite an angry person. Most of the time she was quite angry and abrasive towards people. Not someone I found approachable in any case. So the first day I started working with her, she said to me, I'd like you to have a little notebook. And the reason she wanted me to have a little notebook was because she wanted to tell me how to do the job, remember what she told me, and then rather than have to go back and ask her again how to do the job, I had to read the notes that I'd written up in my notebook. Do you know what, when I look back now, I laugh, I really do, because I wouldn't put up with that shit now.
See your face rise from the lake, see your hair shine in the stream, see your eyes shine dazzling blue as I stare into the summer sky. See the birds fly high above, see the squirrels in the trees. What I do or where I am, I will always be thinking of you. Hold me tightly, never let go, 'cause I value the love you give. Will you love me always and ever? I'm so lonely, I need to know, 'cause I value your love, value your love, I value your love. Loughrigg Tam is almost circular in form, with striking views northwest towards the Langdale Pikes, and with a variety of aquatic plants around its margins. Wordsworth described it as being a most beautiful example.
I've had another pleasant evening. That walk around Loughrigg Tam was gorgeous, it really was. Just makes me think, maybe from now on, when we get the summer every year and we get the nice hot weather and the longer evenings, maybe I ought to just sleep through the day and then not get up until tea time and then have my breakfast and go out and do a walk. I just feel that certainly walking in the evening, I don't know, it just seems so much nicer somehow. The atmosphere is nicer. I just can't describe it, but last night walking around Coniston in the evening before it got dark, and the same tonight walking around Loughrigg Tam, just really pleasant, really nice. I'm not saying that my walks during the day haven't been nice, but there's just something about the atmosphere of walking in the evening that just seems, I don't know, it just seems more peaceful somehow, and just, I don't know, I just can't put my finger on it, but I just find it a lot more pleasant. So the meal I had at the Wainwrights Inn afterwards, that was very nice. Well, when I say that, I mean I had a nice lamb shank there, and it was a nice pub, probably the nicest of the pubs that I've been to for a meal so far, and the nicest meal I've had, but still didn't have the wow factor. I've yet to find a pub whilst I'm up here that I have a really nice meal where I think, wow, that was gorgeous. They're all like nice locations. I mean, particularly tonight, the Wainwrights Inn is in a gorgeous location at the start of Great Langdale. But I've just not found anywhere where the food has just really hit the mark, if you know what I mean. This is my third night in Eldergrove, and it's a really nice guest house. Well recommended by my colleague in work, and the reviews I've seen on TripAdvisor. The breakfasts are to die for, and Paul and Vicky, who run it, very nice couple, and they can't do enough for you. Whenever you go down for breakfast, they'll always have a chat with you first and ask where you're going and what you're going to do before they take your order. They do that with everybody, so they obviously love meeting people. It's another scorcher of a morning. I started the day off nicely with another of Eldergrove's finest Cumbrian breakfasts. So I'm feeding myself up nicely to give me energy for the walk. Just need to try and walk it off and get rid of this bloody stomach. Anyway, on with today's stroll, which takes me through Little Langdale. Little Langdale is a hamlet of a few scattered stone houses and a pub in the Little Langdale Valley, separated by the Lingmore Fells from Great Langdale. Today the valley is lovely and quiet, but 200 years ago it would have all been very different. Little Langdale village was the major intersection of all the old packhorse routes carrying goods around the area. The River Brathay runs down the middle of the valley from Little Langdale Tarn via Skelwith Force to Elterwater, and forms part of the boundary between the historic counties of Lancashire and Westmoreland. The Three Shires Inn, a traditional slate inn built in 1872, gets its name from its location, where on Rhinos Pass, about 2 miles away, the boundaries of the old counties of Cumberland, Westmoreland and Lancashire met. Going back to when I was talking about working with Ros years ago, she was so particular in how she wanted things done. I remember she used to check my work every day. This was in the days before we had computers as common as they are now, and we were still using typewriters. And one of the jobs I used to do was type up a list of all the files that were in our system. So I used to have to update this every day on the typewriter. After I typed up the list, Ros would check it. She would go through it and check for spelling and any other errors that she might have found. The officers in our department would leave all their paperwork to be filed in baskets that were scattered around the offices. And it was mine and Ros's job to put all that paperwork away in the relevant files. Now, Ros left it to me most of the time, you know, that's fine. But I think she must have spent time during each day checking what was in those baskets rather than actually putting it away herself while she was looking. She just checked what was there, and then if it was still there the next morning, she'd say to me, "That filing was still in the basket. I want to know why it wasn't done." I really think that she must have spent more time checking up on me than she actually did just letting me to get on with the work that I needed to do.
At Skelwith Bridge, I decided to treat myself to tea and cake at Chester's, a busy riverside cafe which had been recommended to me. Gorgeous piece of tiffin in that Chester's cafe by the river. That was recommended to me by Paul and Vicky, who run the guest house I'm staying in, and certainly they weren't wrong in how nice the cake was. We've got chocolate all in my gob now. Oh well, never mind. On with the walk. past Elterwater, I reached the village of the same name as my walk for today ended. Elterwater is the gateway to the Langdale Valley. Only a quarter of the houses in Elterwater are permanently occupied, the rest being holiday cottages. Despite being very busy, I absolutely love this village.
Call at the Britannia Inn and have a pint to finish off my walk today? Be rude not to, really, wouldn't it?
That evening, I returned to Little Langdale, as I had decided to dine at the Three Shires Inn.
That is a lovely pub. Best pub in the Lake District that I've been to so far. Friendly staff, especially the young girl who brought me the food. She was quite flirty, but I think that's just part of her charm. Really nice. And just friendly staff altogether. Nice food. I had a smoked salmon with creme fraiche to start, and a chicken and leek pie for the main course. So I'm suitably stuffed. And a nice pint of local ale, which was a Loughrigg Gold, and that was like a light ale, so very nice indeed. Right, tonight, the best night in the Lake District so far. Absolutely brilliant in every aspect. Just walked up to the Royal Oak, and that was a very lively place tonight. There were some guys there that they all knew each other, and they're obviously locals. Whether they're all originally from the Lake District, I don't know, but they're obviously all locals now and they know each other. But I reckon most of the people that go in there are tourists. Went on to the Golden Rule. That was a quiet night in there tonight, actually. There weren't many people in there at all. But, you know, I had a pint of double hop again. There's a guy he's obviously a local, and he's a bit of a, like I said, his own voice I've noticed, because he was talking to people and he was raising his voice a little bit, because he was sort of, someone else was saying to him about, you know, there's other parts of the country that are really nice, like Scotland and Wales, and he said, oh yeah, Wales is lovely, but it's full of Welsh people. And I sort of piped up saying, you got to be careful there, I'm part Welsh. He didn't hear me, although maybe that was selective hearing, who knows, but I didn't consider it a problem, because he was probably just having a joke. But as I say, it has been a really, really nice night tonight. Best night so far. I hope tomorrow, which is my last night here, will be equally as good, if not better. We'll see.
The next morning, my walk started back in Elterwater, from where I climbed up just below Hunting-style Crag. Dropping down the other side, I descended to the lake and village of Grasmere. Grasmere, or Grasmere, is probably Cumbria's most popular village, thanks to William Wordsworth. Today, Grasmere is totally given over to the tourist industry, with plenty of gift shops and places to eat and stay. Most of the buildings date from the 19th or early 20th century, though the farms around Grasmere are much older. The church dates from the 13th century. Dove Cottage was built in the early 17th century and was William Wordsworth's home from 1799 to 1808. Here Wordsworth wrote much of his poetry, and his sister Dorothy kept her famous journals. The Wordsworth Trust was founded in 1891 to secure Dove Cottage. The trustees have built an award-winning museum, opened in 1981, which together with the Wordsworth Library houses what is one of the greatest collections of manuscripts, books and paintings relating to British Romanticism. Grasmere Lake, at 1 mile long, half a mile wide and 75 feet deep, would be an attractive and popular tourist area even without its Wordsworth connections.
My very first trip to the Lake District was overshadowed by that job with Ros, because it was on my mind all the time. I worried about that bloody job. Whilst I was doing it, I used to go home from work every night and worry about the next day, because Ros was such an old bag. I was frightened about breathing or farting in the wrong direction. It was awful. I think things were slightly better by the time I came here to the Lake District for my holiday, but it was still overshadowed by the thought of having to go back to work with Ros after my holiday had finished. Anyway, it didn't stop me appreciating how beautiful it was here. And now, the beauty is, I don't have any shit job, and I still appreciate how beautiful it is here in the Lake District.
Continuing on from Grasmere, I walked beside Rydal Water, one of the smallest lakes at 3/4 of a mile long, 1/4 of a mile wide and with a depth of 55 feet, before arriving in Ambleside. The 17th century bridge house over Stock Gill is one of the most photographed scenes in the Lake District, and is now a shop and information centre for the National Trust.
Shame about the bloody scaffolding.
Ambleside has become a major tourist resort with shops, hotels and restaurants, and is one of the best town bases for exploring the Lake District. After having walked about a mile from the town centre, I found myself beside the northern end of Lake Windermere at Waterhead. Crowded around the bay are boats, hotels, cafes, tourist shops and places selling food for the ducks and swans. Ambleside Youth Hostel is also here, where I remember staying myself many years ago. Eventually, I walked back towards Ambleside town centre, where I soon reached Elder Grove, my B&B, during my week here in the Lake District. So yes, I've been staying in Ambleside. That's where the Golden Rule pub is, which is the best pub in Ambleside. That's where the Unicorn is, the Royal Oak. My last night in Ambleside has been fantastic. Vicky here actually said to me this morning at breakfast, because I was explaining that I'd been taking my car out of Ambleside all week and going to, like last night I went to Little Langdale and Coniston and, you know, Hawkshead. I said, well, I feel more comfortable going into country pubs on my own than I would do to a restaurant on my own. And she said, well, why don't you try the Lakeside Inn, Lakeside Restaurant and Bar, which is basically part of Ambleside Youth Hostel down at Waterhead on the end of the lake. So I took her advice. I just had a beef lasagna, which was okay. For a youth hostel meal, it was nice, and I was looking over Lake Windermere. Yeah, it was lovely. It was really nice, and there was lots of people outside. So for my last night in Ambleside, I have been to my favourite pubs here. Friday night has been busier than normal for the rest of the week I've been here. Started off in the Royal Oak, which the Royal Oak is, I would say it evidently is the most popular pub in Ambleside. It's the busiest pub. I wouldn't say it's the friendliest pub, but you know, a lot of people sat outside there tonight. I can imagine at weekends, you know, it's probably busy all the time. But I went in there and sat on my own. I had a pint of Thwaites Wainwright bitter. I sat in the corner, and they had music playing in the background, and I could have actually just stayed there all night listening to the music, because they played Black Sabbath, Lynyrd Skynyrd, Rainbow, White Snake. It was great. Oh, Deep Purple. They played Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple. I finished my pint, and then I went back into the Unicorn. Yeah, it's a lovely pub, but it's just no atmosphere in there tonight. I had one pint of Cumbria Way. I drank that pint very quickly, and then I just went on to the Golden Rule, which, as I say, is just the greatest pub in Ambleside. It really is. I've actually got to go home tomorrow. I've got to go home tomorrow. A shame. It's been a lovely week and it's gone by so quick. Oh well. Here's my hiccups. Me on my way home now. I've just stopped here at Windermere Youth Hostel. Just seemed appropriate because when I first came to the lakes at the age of 21, this was the place I spent my first night. So it's fitting that I just stop here on my way back. And also, I couldn't come to the Lake District and not buy some Kendal mint cake. Had to take some of this away with me. Well, it's been a fantastic week, it really has. And as I said before, I think the Lake District is the most gorgeous place on the planet. It has to be. I don't want to go.
The lakes and valleys here make this place feel so strange. It makes it seem like a dream, but I'm wide awake. The atmosphere is strong, so far away from home. I love the feeling that's here. It's a different world.